Something is following me. My name is Mike. I've been working as a night courier for over a year now. In our state, not many people want to take night shifts, especially doing deliveries. People prefer to sleep soundly in their warm homes while I drive through dark streets, delivering packages to those who suddenly decided they urgently needed a new router, a charger, or sneakers at 3 in the morning. I never particularly liked this job, but it gave me at least some income, and right now I needed the money more than ever. 2 weeks ago, my old phone finally gave out. First, it stopped getting a GPS signal, and without that, there's no point doing deliveries at night. Then the battery started draining before my eyes. I knew I wouldn't last long with problems like that. Navigation is my main lifeline in this endless labyrinth of suburban streets. But I couldn't afford a new smartphone. Loans, rent, and gas, So I decided to cut corners. On some forum, I stumbled upon a post someone was selling an old GPS tablet, the kind they use to install in trucks, with a large screen designed specifically for navigation and maps. The price was suspiciously low, just $30. The seller said the device worked fine, except for one little thing. The tablet supposedly restarted itself every night exactly at 2 a.m. Just a weird system glitch, the seller explained when we met. A man in his 40s, with the face of a tired accountant, spoke quickly and nervously, like he was in a hurry to finish the deal. Honestly, I don't need it anymore. The reboot is nothing. GPS works perfectly, maps are up to date. For that price, it's a gift. Just don't get spooked when it restarts on its own. Just wait a couple minutes and it'll turn back on. Honestly, I was happy even with that. I just needed a working navigator. I wasn't planning on digging into its software quirks. I took the tablet, and mounted it in my old Toyota Corolla. Spent a couple of evenings testing the device. Everything worked like clockwork. Smooth road planning, accurate maps, voice guidance. But the seller himself left a strange aftertaste. His eyes. When I handed him the money, he avoided eye contact. His hands were shaking, as if he was happy not about the cash, but the fact that he was finally getting rid of the thing. But I didn't think much of it. My first night shift with the new tablet started like all the others. An endless stream of addresses, packages, and deserted streets. I turned the wheel, peered into lifeless facades of identical houses, and mentally memorized routes. Sometimes I'd pass 24-hour diners glowing like beacons in the dense dark. Sometimes I'd spot other couriers like me, nodded to a couple familiar faces. It was late. The clock showed 1:45. I was delivering another package to the outskirts, a frustratingly confusing neighborhood. The pavement there had long needed repairs. Plastic bags littered the curbs, and the rare streetlights lit up puddles that shimmered with murky light. At 2 a.m., the tablet suddenly froze, and then the screen went black. I didn't realize what was happening at first, but after a couple seconds I understood this had to be that reboot. Remembering the seller's words, I didn't panic. I parked comfortably by the roadside and waited patiently. The screen flickered. A loading logo appeared, just like he said. But when the device fully powered on, I saw something I definitely didn't expect. On the dark gray map background, right over the road, large white letters appeared. He is already in your state. I stared at those words for a long time, trying to understand. Was this a joke? A glitch? Maybe one of the previous owners left a virus? Or was this some kind of system message? But no, the tablet worked offline. No internet, no SIM card. It couldn't connect to a network. I checked it myself in the settings. I shrugged. Must be a bug. Some weird firmware, maybe custom. After all, the tablet was bought secondhand. A couple minutes later, the message disappeared, and the map returned to its normal interface, plotting my route to the next delivery. The rest of the shift passed without incident, but when I got home in the early morning and lay in bed, that strange message wouldn't leave my mind. Who is he? Why in my state? A joke? A sick prank? Or maybe the seller wanted to scare me. Yet along with it, I felt a strange shadow settle in the room, as if someone unseen was nearby, watching me. Even though I knew there was no one in the apartment but me, I convinced myself I was just tired. It happens. Sleep deprivation and night work can make the brain overly sensitive, but deep down, I felt a strange, sticky unease. A week passed. I kept working night shifts like before, and the tablet, despite that strange glitch, was generally working just fine. Navigation was accurate, routes calculated flawlessly, and even the voice assistant spoke in a calm baritone, like some old school broadcaster guiding me down the road. But every night, exactly at 2 o'clock, it would restart, and every night a new message would appear. First, he is already in your country. A few nights later, he is already in your city. These words didn't just unsettle me, they started to gnaw at my sanity, like water slowly wears down stone. I tried to brush it off, explain it rationally. There's no way these phrases could mean anything. Most likely a firmware bug, maybe from some old software or a prank virus. Maybe the seller was into creepy ARGs or horror games and flashed the tablet as a joke. But how could the messages be so precise? Why were they getting closer every day? By then, I had already started noticing strange things. I began to feel a kind of primal, heavy fear in the evenings. I had the constant sensation someone was walking behind me when I returned from the car. Sometimes I'd catch movement in the rearview mirror, like something flickered behind me. But when I looked around, the street was empty. I started sleeping restlessly, jolting awake at every creak. I began leaving for work with a strange sense of dread, like something wrong was hanging in the air, a looming threat I couldn't explain. And then came the next night. It began like usual. A few deliveries to the outskirts, then a longer route to a residential neighborhood where the houses stood far apart, nestled among thick tree canopies. I had just delivered the last package and was walking back to the car when the dashboard clock started blinking 1:59. I already knew what was about to happen. Exactly at 2 a.m., the tablet flickered, shut off, and slowly began rebooting. As always, I pulled over, turned off the headlights so I wouldn't blind myself, and waited. And there it was again, a message. He is already in your neighborhood. But this time there was something new. Beneath the text, right on the map, a small black dot was blinking. It had no label, no address, no marker, just a dot, dense like a drop of ink soaked into paper. I stared at it, and something inside me clenched. That dot was within my neighborhood, almost in the same block where I lived. For a second, I wondered, was this a map glitch? Or maybe someone left a pin. But who? How? The tablet wasn't connected to any network. It was offline. I had checked it myself. Every part of me wanted to turn around, go home, and lock myself in until morning. But driven by some painful curiosity, I tapped the screen and started navigation to the dot. The GPS silently built the road. It was a short drive, 7 minutes at most. I arrived at the location, just a regular suburban intersection. The streetlights lit up the wet asphalt from a recent night rain. The air was damp, and a thin fog curled along the curbs. I turned off the engine, left the headlights on. For a moment, I sat in the car, staring into the street, and then I saw him. On the opposite side of the road, in the beam of a streetlight, stood a figure. Very tall, unnaturally thin, as if carved from coal. Head slightly tilted to one side, hunched back, arms long, unnaturally bent at the elbows, like the joints were working the wrong way. And he moved, slowly on thin, almost absurdly long legs, stepping forward like a giant spider. For a moment, he stopped and turned his head directly toward me. I don't know what exactly was in place of a face, maybe a smooth surface, maybe no features at all, but I saw two black voids that seemed to suck in the light. From a slit in his mouth, thick black sludge oozed out like crude oil, dripping onto the pavement. And then he screamed. It wasn't a normal scream. It was a rending, low, alien roar no human could make. His voice seemed to vibrate in the air, crawling under the skin, shaking bones. I felt my heart slam hard against my ribs, cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. I barely managed to pull my hand from the steering wheel, trembling fingers shifting gears, and I slammed my foot on the gas. The tires screeched as I sped out of that neighborhood, the monster slowly dissolving into the fog behind me. Only when I reached a brighter, busier street did I dare to stop. My hands were shaking, my legs trembling. I took several deep breaths and, still shivering, called the police. "There's," I stammered. "There's some guy, or not a guy, something really weird near the intersection of Willow Street and Pine Road. Please send someone." The operator sounded young and clearly unaccustomed to panicked calls. She tried to calm me and promised that a unit was already on the way. I kept working like a robot, delivered a couple more packages, but my mind had shut down. Everything felt like a dream. The next morning, I got a brief call from the local police station. They reported no one was found in that area. Probably just some teenagers playing a prank, the officer said lazily. "Or maybe you imagined it. Everything's fine, sir." But I knew it wasn't a person, and that thing was already in my neighborhood. Another night passed, then another, and another. I tried to convince myself that what I saw had been a hallucination. Nerves, stress, exhaustion, night fog, strange lighting, all of that can make the mind play tricks on you. But with each passing evening, I felt the anxiety growing inside me, as if something dark had already latched onto me and was now slowly creeping closer. And the tablet kept working. It kept rebooting. It kept showing new messages. The next one appeared 2 days later, at exactly 2 a.m. The screen went dark, then lit up again, and I read, "He is already in your block." Now the black dot on the map was extremely close. It had literally moved into the next alley over, just 2 blocks away from my house. I froze in the driver's seat, staring at the screen. On the tablet's map, among the familiar streets and intersections, the dot seemed to pulse, like a living heart. I felt a lump rise in my throat. This thing, it really was moving. It was coming for me. For the first time, I seriously thought, maybe I should talk to the guy who sold me the tablet. I opened my eBay account to find his profile, but instead of his seller page, a short notice popped up, user deleted. He no longer existed. Trying to find out more, I drove to the return address that had been on the package when I bought it. It turned out to be a small house in an old neighborhood, 1.5 stories with a creaky wooden porch and peeling paint on the shutters. I knocked on the door. No answer. An elderly woman came out of the neighboring house, frail, in an old knitted cardigan, with a worried look in her eyes. "Excuse me," I asked. "Do you know where the people from this house went?" She glanced at the empty home and replied softly, "The left. All of them. Right after they sold off a bunch of old junk. I haven't seen them since. Not him, not the wife, not the kid. Left like they were running from something. Didn't even say goodbye." Her words gave me goosebumps. "Running from what?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. She shrugged. "I don't know," but he looked scared. Didn't leave the house for the last few days. I came back home just before dawn. The sky was getting lighter, but the air still carried the sticky darkness of the night. I drove in silence, no music, no real thoughts, just one sensation pulsing in my head like a nervous drumbeat. I had to get rid of the tablet as soon as possible. Sitting behind the wheel, I was rethinking everything. This tablet didn't just show the road, it watched, it informed. It felt somehow connected to that creature. I remembered its glowing screen, those cold, alien messages, as if someone was looking at me through metal and plastic, and each line closer and closer. For a moment, I thought I understood the seller. His restlessness, the nervous eyes, his desperation to get rid of the device at any cost. Maybe he hadn't believed it himself until the very end, and then he just ran. I wasn't any better. I had no plan either, just instinct to flee, to hide, to shove the problem onto someone else. It sounds cruel, but when something inhuman is approaching your home, you stop caring about morals. The next day, as soon as the classified sites opened, I took a picture of the tablet and posted the ad. No extra details, no mention of the reboots, no talk of strange messages, just use a GPS navigator. Cheap, excellent condition. A reply came fast. Some guy from a neighboring state. His name meant nothing to me, but he immediately agreed to buy it. Asked me to ship it out in the morning. Paid through the app. It all happened quickly, almost too quickly. And that's when I realized I had one night left. One. The last one. I didn't go to work. Marked myself off in the delivery app. Didn't explain. Just ended the shift and logged out. By 6 in the evening, I had locked all the doors with bolts, latches, chains. I walked around the apartment several times, checking every window, every crack. I pulled down the blinds, sealed them shut, even taped the corners with duct tape as if that might save my life. In the hallway, in front of the entrance door, I dragged over a heavy oak dresser that used to sit under the TV. Screw the linoleum, it could get ruined, as long as it put one more barrier between me and that thing. I stripped down to a t-shirt, threw on a warm hoodie, and sat in the kitchen with my back to the wall. In front of me sat a cup of coffee, long since cold, but I kept sipping it mechanically, like a ritual. Outside, the night was falling like a black curtain. Everything around me felt too quiet. No sounds from the street, no footsteps, no voices from neighbors. It was like the whole neighborhood had gone extinct. I stared at the clock, 1:47, 1:51, 1:56. When the numbers on the screen blinked 159, my heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I placed my hand on the tablet as if bracing for impact. It was cold, metallic like something foreign. And then the screen went black. I didn't even breathe. A minute, maybe two. The room was drowned in silence, broken only by the ticking of the old fridge and my own shallow breathing. Then the screen lit up. That same gray background, that same dead, faded map. "He is already in your house." I read those words, and it felt like the world around me started to shrink. The space tightened, like the walls were closing in, the ceiling lowering. I couldn't move. My face seemed frozen in a grimace of terror. And then I saw him. Through the blinds in the hallway, I caught a faint, troubling movement. On the corner of my block, directly under the street lamp, stood that same figure, that same elongated silhouette with twisted arms, long legs, and a hunched spine. Even from this distance, I could see thick, oily fluid dripping from his mouth onto the pavement. My chest seized, my heart thundered wildly, like it was about to tear through my ribs. I couldn't sleep. I stayed in the kitchen until dawn, listening for every sound at the door. When the first pale light of morning filtered through the window, and the shadow beneath the street lamp had vanished, I finally dared to move. I went to the post office, almost running. In my hands was the package with the tablet, wrapped up like it was radioactive. I didn't look at anyone, didn't notice the cars or the people. I just walked, fast, silent. When I handed the box to the clerk at the counter and heard the scanner beep, my heart beat calmly for the first time in days. That was it, done. I had gotten rid of it. That evening, I came home again. Did everything just like the night before. Locks, blinds, dresser. But this time, it felt more like a ritual than a defense. I sat in the kitchen, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a not peace, no, but at least a dull, quiet calm, as if the wild hunt had passed me by. The night was silent. I even started to doze off, head resting on my arms, and then I woke up to a sound, a dull, sharp knock at the door. My heart exploded into motion, like someone had hurled it against my chest from the inside. I didn't move. I stared at the door like it was a void, and then a voice. "Hey, Mike, it's me. Jason, come on, man. Delivery." The voice was familiar, ordinary. Jason, my coworker. Calm, collected guy I chatted with many times during shifts. I even laughed, quietly, nervously, like someone who just narrowly avoided death. I opened the door. He stood there in his courier jacket holding a box. Smiled, shrugged. "Wrong address." "Happens. Here you go." I took the package, thanked him, exchanged a few words, watched him leave. Only then did I close the door. I went back to the kitchen, set the box on the table. Something about the weight of it caught my attention. Something too familiar. I carefully tore the tape. Inside was my tablet. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The world froze. I stumbled back. How? I'd shipped it. The tablet lit up on its own. No touch. No buttons. On the screen, in that deathly gray glow, appeared one final message. "He is already in your door." And in that exact second, behind me, in the silence of the kitchen, I heard a wet, sloshing, guttural sound, and I realized I had forgotten to lock the door. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It helps the darkness spread. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next nightmare. And remember, Don't listen to the whispers in the dark.